Miss your stop, and you could end up at a train station that doesn't exist. School bathrooms, where answering the wrong question means death. And a story so terrifying it turns people catatonic. These are disturbing urban legends from Japan that still terrify locals. In 2004, a woman using the name Hasume made a post on the Japanese forum 2channel while sitting on a train late at night. Other passengers were asleep. This was her normal commute to work, but the train hadn't stopped in a long time. Stations were being skipped and no announcements were being made. Hasume tried to contact the conductor or driver but couldn't get a response. Unsure what else to do, she posted online asking for advice. People started replying as she gave updates in real time. After about an hour, the train finally stopped. Hasume stepped onto an empty platform. The station sign read Kisaragi Station. There were no staff. The train departed, leaving her alone. She stayed at the station and continued posting. Users quickly searched online and told her there was no station by the name anywhere in Japan and urged her to leave immediately. Hasume walked outside and tried to find a taxi, but no dice. She eventually found a phone booth and called her parents, asking them to pick her up. They tried, but of course, they had no idea where Kisaragi Station was. As time passed, Hasume described the area as deeply unsettling. She could hear a bell tolling somewhere nearby, along with a drum beat that slowly grew louder. Deciding she couldn't stay there, she started walking along the train tracks to escape. While following the tracks, a voice suddenly shouted from behind her, "Hey, don't walk on the track, it's dangerous." When Hasume turned around, she saw a man. He only had one leg. For a moment she was relieved though, he'd be able to tell her where the hell she was, but then he vanished into thin air. Panicking, she ran into a nearby tunnel and injured herself along the way. After reaching the other side, a man greeted her and offered to help. The two returned to Kisaragi Station and boarded another train. This train carried them into a remote area of the Japanese Alps. At first the man was speaking normally, but then he slowly became incoherent, began muttering nonsense, and then fell silent. Hasume made one final post. "My battery's almost run out. Things are getting strange, so I think I'm gonna make a run for it." And that was the last anyone heard from her. This next one is called Gozu, the Cowhead Story. It's a story about a story. The story in question is said to be so terrifying that hearing it all the way through can kill you. At best, you'll be in a state of shock, unable to speak for the rest of your life. In some versions, listeners die days later in accidents after hearing it. Now, the most common version involves a teacher telling students a scary story on a bus or during class. Halfway through, the teacher realizes what he's saying and tries to stop, but it's too late. The teacher gets locked into this trance, unable to stop telling the story. When help arrives, the bus is wrecked or the class is unresponsive, with the teacher and students in a total daze, unable to speak, barely able to move. But what is this utterly terrifying story that puts listeners in a state of shock and utter terror? Nobody knows. This is that classic example that some of the scariest horror touches on the fear of the unknown, the unexplainable. Even Japanese horror writers have commented on it, saying the fear comes from suggestion. It's been referenced in Japanese literature and media as early as the 20th century. Late at night, on quiet roads, drivers in parts of Japan have reported a motorcycle coming up behind them. When the bike pulls alongside, the driver is horrified when they realize the biker has no head. In some versions of the legend, the rider is searching for his missing head. In others, he's looking for the person who caused his death. A few stories say he rides next to cars, matching their speed, tapping on their windows, or daring the driver to look straight at him. If they do, crashes are said to follow not long after. The legends seem to come about after the Australian film Stone in 1974. There's a scene in the movie where a rider's head is lobbed off after running into a wire stretched across the road. When the movie reached Japan in 1981, stories about headless riders started spreading alongside real stories of motorcycle accidents. There are also more ordinary explanations. A rider in a dark full-face helmet on an unlit road can look headless at the right angle. And some Japanese bikers have even admitted to wearing non-reflective black helmets on purpose just to mess with drivers. And next we have the legend of Turbo Granny, which Doesn't sound scary in the slightest, and the fact that this is a Japanese story, it's kind of making me picture a huge mech robot in the form of an old lady, but the tale is actually much creepier. The story goes that if you're driving on mountain roads late at night, especially in rural areas, you might see an elderly woman running beside your car. At first you assume it's your eyes playing tricks on you, but then you speed up and she keeps pace. Some versions say she can run over 100 kilometers per hour. Others say she rides in the back of your car, laughing and tapping on your trunk and windows. If you stop, she'll just catch up. If you don't, accidents tend to happen. Drivers report engines stalling, steering locking, or tires blowing out right as she appears. Turbo Granny became popular in the 80s and 90s when car culture really exploded in Japan and young drivers were racing through mountain passes at night. She became a kind of roadside ghost story. Some versions say she's the spirit of an old woman killed by a car. Others say she's always existed, attached to roads where people often die. Hanako-san is one of the first ghost stories Japanese kids ever hear, which might be why it never really leaves them. She's said to haunt school bathrooms, usually on the third floor, third stall. Knock 3 times and ask if she's there. Sometimes she answers, sometimes she comes out. The details change depending on the area. In some versions she's harmless, in others she drags people into the toilet where they're never seen again. As for her origin story, some say she died in World War II during air raids while hiding in the school. Another version says she was being followed by a man, and the bathroom is where she was hiding when she was killed. There's something so unsettling about the idea of a ghost haunting a bathroom stall. I think it's the vulnerability of it, when you're literally being caught with your pants down. Back in the late 70s, people in Japan weren't just talking about this one, they were scared enough that schools sent kids home in groups, and police departments made public statements about it. Kuchisake-onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. The story goes like this. A woman approaches you in the street, usually wearing a surgical mask. She asks, "Am I pretty?" If you say no, she ends your life on the spot. If you say yes, she removes the mask and reveals the torn smile, sometimes lined with sharp teeth, and asks again, "Even now?" Say no or scream and you're dead. Say yes and she cuts your mouth to match hers. Some say she used to be a beautiful woman who was attacked by her jealous sister. Other versions say it was a botched cosmetic or dental procedure. Next up we have the Red Room Curse. This one became popular on Japanese message boards in the early 2000s. The setup is always the same. You're using your computer late at night and a red pop-up window appears. It asks, "Do you like the Red Room?" You can't close it. No matter what you do, it stays. And then a voice starts listing names, and as it goes on, the screen fills with red. According to the story, the final name is yours. And after that, you're found dead in a room covered in BLOOD. Now, what pushed this beyond just an internet scare was a real case in 2004. A schoolgirl, simply referred to as Girl A to the media, took the life of a classmate and later talked about being obsessed with the Red Room story. So, news coverage at the time tied the two together. There's a stretch of mountains in Fukuoka where there's said to be a hidden village known as Inunaki. You're driving through the mountains, following narrow roads when your phone signal fades. Somewhere near the old Inunaki tunnel, there's a small side road, and that road is where the legend of Inunaki Village begins. People who claim to have found it describe a handwritten sign near the entrance, which says the Japanese Constitution does not apply beyond this point. According to the story, the people living there reject the government entirely. There are no police, no laws. Once you pass the sign, you're on your own. One of the earliest stories places the origin in the early 70s. A young couple driving toward Hisayama had their car break down and went into the forest looking for help. They came across a quiet village, so quiet it almost looked abandoned. But then an old man popped out of a house, attacking them with a sickle. Another version centers on a telephone booth near Inunaki Bridge. Supposedly it rings late at night. The call always comes from Inunaki Village. People who answer are said to be drawn there and cursed. First they lose control of their thoughts, and then their body follows. Now what keeps this legend alive is the real place around it. There was a real village, founded in 1691 and later abandoned and submerged during the construction of the Inunaki Dam. Nearby is the old Inunaki Tunnel, sealed after a man was burned alive inside it in 1988. Next up is Teke Teke. Most versions of this story start the same way. The kid is walking home after dark, maybe near train tracks, usually near train tracks, but maybe cutting through a quiet street they've taken 100 times before, when they hear something behind them. It's not footsteps, it's something dragging. Teke Teke is said to be the ghost of a schoolgirl who fell onto train tracks and was cut in half instead of dying, and then she just crawls around using her arms, pulling herself along the ground. The sound she makes while moving is where the name comes from, a hard, scraping noise that gets closer and closer no matter how fast you walk. If she catches you, she kills you the same way. And she doesn't get tired. Running doesn't help. Hiding doesn't work either, because once she's noticed you, she always knows where you are. The story spread through schools for years, especially in areas with busy train lines. And finally, we have Manto. Most versions put him in school bathrooms, usually the girls' room, the last stall at the far wall. You're on the toilet when you hear him, a calm voice that asks a simple question: red paper or blue paper? If you look up, he's standing there wearing a red cloak and a mask that hides his face. If you pick red, you die violently, slashed and flayed. If you pick blue, you're strangled until you turn blue and collapse. And if you try to be clever, asking for a different color, he drags you away somewhere, never to be seen again. Some say you're pulled straight into hell. The only way out, according to the stories, is to refuse the game. So, say you don't want either. Don't answer, just get up and leave. Well, with all that said, I've been your host, James, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.